guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at a ZT. Now I've got to say guys, this is a ZT that I have wanted for quite some time. I've already had the original version of this. It's not the ZT you're probably thinking of. I know I need to get my hands on a 0308 and I definitely will be shortly. But in the meantime, I've got this to possibly tide me over, and hopefully it's not too long. It's actually on its way to me now, just with the way things are going with mail these days. It's just taking its sweet time to get here. So I've got this knife to share with you, and there are a couple of reasons I want to sort of re-share this video. First, I did all my reviews of this knife before I was doing the top-down method like this, but also this, of course, is a new version, and it's one that I've been after for quite a while. And one other point, and that is, this is the zero tolerance that I have recommended the most. And I want to kind of go over the reasons why I find this to be one of the most well-balanced, like broadly applicable zero tolerance folders that's out there. Okay, so first of all, let me give you a little bit of background. I've had this knife before. It's based on the Hinderer XM18, and it's definitely the closest production knife that you can get to an XM18 without actually buying a Hinderer. The price point's actually fairly close these days. Honestly, if you're going to get one of these brand new, it's going to be like $280. You can buy like a Gen 4, Gen 5 Hinderer for very close to, for probably $325 to $350. So you might at this point want to bump that price up a little bit. Now let me say this, DLT Trading has had some good sales on this and a few other ZTs, by the way, so I'll put their link in the description box, just because I feel like if you're going to buy a ZT, that's one of the best places. They tend to stock all of them most of the time, so it's a pretty good chance that if you go over there, they're going to have one. And of course, using my link does help the channel an awful lot. Now back to my discussion. I had the original ZT. I had this when it first came out in M390 steel. I liked it back then. I did change the hardware on mine. Let me know in the comments below, but I do kind of have some inclination to change this hardware as well. I mean, I don't dislike the black, but I think, this knife, because of the plain tie, could really pop with maybe bronze hardware, or I don't know. I'm kind of toying with it in my mind. The reason I didn't pre-buy it, and sometimes I do that, I knew this was coming for a while now. As I said, mail's running pretty slow. But I didn't pre-buy it because I just didn't know what color I really wanted, and I thought maybe when I got it in person I'd have a better idea. I still don't. So that the hardware on this may change, may not. I'm still on the fence about that particular portion. But let me get back to why I find this to be a highly recommendable zero tolerance, and probably in this version more so than maybe some of the others. Maybe this or the plain G10. So I think there's a couple of reasons. One, the size and weight on this. So this is a ZT, but unlike the ZTs that were kind of common at the time, this is not as big, it's not as heavy duty, it's not as, difficult to carry around in pocket. It comes in at, I guess I'll just give you the size and weight. So this is 8¼ inches, 3½ inch blade, 4 7/8 inch handle. Between 3 3/4, like, the grip area, it's hard to know exactly where to measure to on this handle, but it's, even with big hands, you're going to be just fine. You can easily get 4 inches out of this. Weighs in at 5.4 ounces, which is not that bad. Feels really, really good in hand, and has a really nicely balanced blade. So I talk about balance on this channel all the time. I probably sound like a broken record. Look at that grind, by the way. Isn't it pretty? But I like the fact that this sort of strikes a nice balance between being heavily built and ready for anything, but also pretty slicey. You could definitely cut a tomato up with this knife and not have too many problems. And so, I just feel like the balance that this knife gets, it's of course based on the Hinderer slicer grind, and I think it's a pretty well balanced offering as well from ZT. There are some others, and honestly, probably if I was going to recommend you a zero tolerance for most people, if your tastes aren't exactly like mine, these would be on my very short list of ZTs to recommend the most. Okay. Let's move this guy back out of the way. I like this one substantially better, but I understand that not everyone likes knives that are quite as big and beefy as I do. The other thing is, I've got to say, feels great in hand, reasonably priced, deep carry clip. And the other thing is it's easy to modify. So there's lots of aftermarket stuff out there, clips and hardware and everything else. So for all of those reasons, this is a really, really easy knife to recommend to people if they're looking for their first zero tolerance. I think this does two big things. One, it gives you, it's a very high-end feeling knife. It feels the quality is really on point here. It's sort of, it gives you enough of that ZT-ness, the heavy duty sort of hard use, ready for anything type of feeling that ZTs are supposed to, in my mind, elicit. So it gets that enough without being crazy overbuilt. And so for all those reasons, I can easily recommend this. Now, I will say this. I do have one complaint here, and that is if you're going to sort of redo this knife, and this is not a complete reimagination, but the blade steel is different than the original. The titanium scales, of course, are different. The hardware, I believe on the original it was just plain silver, but maybe it was black. I can't recall. But if you're going to do all that, it would have been nice to see them do a captured pivot. This is still free spinning, which was one of the complaints that people had about the original one. It's not the end of the world, but it just feels like something that at this point, should be, I don't know, if you're making a knife, just make it with a captured pivot. Like there's no reason not to. And it just makes it better. So it really should have been done, especially when they were going to do an updated model. Other than that, and it's not, again, that's not like the end of the world. I'm not going to be throw this knife in the garbage because it doesn't have a captured pivot, but it would have been nice to see. All right, so given all of those things, that's why I appreciate this knife an awful lot. That's why I find it so easy to recommend, and that's why I kind of missed having one in the collection. So I'm going to stop with that. I do want to bring in a couple of quick comparisons, not because this is so much a full review. This is very much just an overview, but I will probably do some comparison videos with this, and one of the comparisons I definitely want to do is with this knife right here. I think these two stack up pretty well, and in fact, these brand new are going to cost a little bit more, but on the secondary market, these are actually fairly close in price. These tend to hold value pretty well, so they're not easy to find super cheap. These have not held value as well, so you can probably pick one of these up for between $225 and $250. And guess what? Secondary, you can probably pick one of these up for about the same. That's, of course, US dollars. A similar knife, although I guess another similar knife, another favorite designer of mine, similar size, similar weight, all that kind of stuff. So these two, again, feel like pretty close competitors to me. This one is a Ferrum Forge design, who I really, really like. This one is a Rick Hinderer design, again, someone I really, really like and appreciate. So I think I'll be doing a comparison between this one as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about these. Now, I may make a whole nother video just talking about knives that fall into this category, because these do represent something interesting to me. I'm just going to share this with you and then we're going to call it a day. But all of these knives are sort of hard-ish use, if that makes sense. They all have big beefy components. They all are fairly hefty. They all have robust blades with grinds that are meant to lean toward toughness a little bit. And yet they also have some features that make them a little pocket jewelry-ish and maybe not something that you'd want to really be pounding on. And so I want to have a whole discussion about this style of knife. And so, you can look for that coming up. Something like this, okay, is definitely clearly in the EDC category, right? This is not hard use, heavy duty type of stuff. It's not overbuilt. It's none of that. Where this kind of is, even though they have a lot of similar features. So we'll have that discussion in the not too distant future. One last thing I'll leave with you before I go, and that is to say, I've already done it with this knife, but something I do with all of my new knives when I first get it in, and this was pretty decent out of box, but it wasn't amazing. I have taken some forced air to this, blown out the pivot, tried to clean it up a little bit. I haven't taken it down. Because I'm still not sure. I may be switching out the hardware, so I'll wait till that happens. But I loosen off the pivot, open things up a little bit, put some forced air through there, put some KPL in the pivot, and then kind of tighten everything back down and go from there. And I will say that has made a pretty significant improvement on the action here. So there you go, guys. Don't forget to check that link down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear your comments. Who's got one? Who loves this knife? And if you don't like it, I'd love to hear that as well. We'll talk to you soon.